In a very funny season 13 Simpsons episode, when Homer catches Marge fantasizing about the burly paper towel man, he decides to try and have a fantasy of his own.
Ooh, Mama Celeste. Brrr.
You touch me, and I catch you.
Oh.
Homer, I'll tell you what I told Redford. It ain't gonna happen.
Aw.
While we know Homer is happily married to Marge, we've seen countless clear indicators like this throughout the series that Homer doesn't only have eyes for women.
I'm pulling your favorite song out of the jukebox.
It's raining, man!
But it goes far beyond goofy little innuendos like that, with Homer frequently expressing actual bi-curiosity, subtly at first in the early years, but more and more flamboyantly as the show went on. Part 1. Classic era bi-curiosity. While we've seen Homer get kissed by his assistant Carl, and passionately express his platonic love for his best friends at Moe's,
I love you, Barney.
the earliest inkling of a real bi-curiosity, I think, came in season 4, when he misunderstands Mr. Burns' union negotiating tactics.
Is he coming on to me? Sorry, Mr. Burns, but I don't go in for these backdoor shenanigans. Sure, I'm flattered, maybe even a little curious. But the answer is no.
But just one season later, Homer goes from a reluctant curiosity to hypothetical propositioning after he fails to get a job he wanted.
I'm an idiot. What am I going to tell my wife and kids?
Oh, you're married?
That depends. Is there another way to get this job?
I don't think this scene is actually supposed to be read as Homer making a serious offer, given that he's made clear he would not cheat on Marge despite many temptations in the past. But nonetheless, his mind did quickly go to seduction. Homer is clearly a very physical, id-driven kind of guy, as he's demonstrated repeatedly that he enjoys the tactile experience of kissing, regardless of gender.
Give it a try, like kissing a peanut.
But beyond kissing, Homer's implied to have a fixation on less vanilla pleasure-seeking as well.
I suppose you want to probe me. Well, might as well get it over with. Stop.
But of course I should note, other than a few dry spells, Homer and Marge are portrayed as having a very active and somewhat kinky sex life. So I would bet Homer's fixation here has likely already been explored in the bedroom. If the thought of Marge pegging Homer is not one you ever wanted to have, well, buckle up. Given all this, it is worth wondering if Homer ever experimented before committing to Marge. Officially, he says Marge was his first and only romantic kiss, but one joke in season 9 implies that maybe he has more experience before dating Marge than he lets on.
You know how it is when you're kissing a guy with a tongue stud.
Yes. Oh, God, yes.
Of course, that gag could be read as just Homer being an idiot and laughing along to a joke he doesn't actually relate to, but given everything else we're going to discuss here, I think it's at least a possibility he's reacting out of real-life experience. While he probably never experimented with his longtime friends Lenny or Carl, he has shown some degree of attraction to them, like when he becomes an artist.
You're making us a little bit uncomfortable.
Relax, big guy. He's just doing this for his art. Right, Homer?
Oh, yeah. Art.
And as we'll continue to see, he's even shown an attraction to his longtime friend Moe as well.
That was amazing, Mo. I'm actually a little turned on.
And while Moe was a lot more attractive in that episode due to plastic surgery, Homer's clearly not terribly shallow, as he once again reluctantly considered experimenting with another of Springfield's ugliest bachelors, when he again misunderstands Mr. Burns.
I want to be loved.
I see. Well, I'll need some beer.
And obviously he thinks Flanders is sexy.
Stupid, sexy Flanders!
But who among us could disagree with that? With all these jokes over the course of the first decade or so, it wasn't until season 14 that the show at least kinda addressed this directly. Part 2. Some exploration and internalized homophobia. After getting in a fight with Marge, Homer moves out of the house and eventually finds a new place to live, with 2 gay men as roommates.
He made us a great breakfast, and you're just riding his butt. And not in a good way.
And while working on fixing things with Marge, he becomes steeped in what at the time might have been called a metrosexual lifestyle, until one of his roommates develops a crush on him.
Whoa. Wow. I never realized you felt about me that way. We should really take some time to talk and... I just end up hurting you!
Obviously, Homer soon after reconciles with Marge, but not without having this thought.
That is the best kiss I've had tonight. Or was it?
Homie, what are you thinking?
Manly thoughts.
While at first this episode may seem like it's about Homer exploring his sexuality, it's really just a Homer and Marge marriage episode with a gay neighborhood backdrop. It doesn't look into his bi-curiosity in any meaningful way, other than adding one more hint at it. And unfortunately, around this era of the series, as the show's humor had gotten a bit edgier, we actually started to see more homophobic behavior out of Homer, despite his progressive turn back in season 8.
I am the gayest supervillain ever!
And to that end, one of the co-hosts of the hilarious Worst Episode Ever podcast has a slightly different theory about Homer's possible queerness.
You know what? We've talked about what we think the series finale might be, whether it could be a Christmas episode, whatever.
Homer's
blah, blah, blah.
gay. That's the
I think
that's
that
the
should be
series
it.
finale.
I think all the Homer's homophobia is actually he's just repressed gay, and he comes out as gay, and that way it's a happy ending.
And while I'm not sure that that's gonna happen, this era in particular did have a lot of gay jokes.
Why don't you start a rumor that he's ding-a-ling-a-ling?
As chronicled by another brilliant Simpsons podcaster, in Drew Mackey's epic 2-hour-long compilation of every gay joke in The Simpsons ever.
Bear, I thought you guys didn't drink on the gay flower.
Stop calling it that!
Was Homer struggling with internalized homophobia in this era? Unable to accept his bi-curiosity? Maybe. In another joke about Homer being bi, he considers what's the furthest he can go without crossing that line, after he gets kidnapped with a group of other tow truck drivers.
If elected president of our small community, I will determine once and for all how far we can go without being gay.
Thankfully, as the show continued to progress, it eventually tamped down a bit on the edgy gay jokes, so Homer moved past this slightly homophobic phase once again. But nonetheless, one thing that certainly did not stop was jokes about Homer being bi-curious. Like when Homer once again expresses a latent interest in his bartender Moe, after he describes a scheme to crossbreed different types of bees.
You and me?
No, the bees.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant too. I have no inclination.
And while Moe doesn't seem to reciprocate here, he's certainly got some bi-curiosity of his own. But despite that, Moe, like Homer, mostly has eyes for Marge, which brings us to our next example. Part 3, Non-Canon Queerness. In Treehouse of Horror 20, the three of them put on a gruesome Sweeney Todd musical parody. In it, Homer gets impaled under Moe's bar and goes missing, and Moe tries to woo a distraught Marge by falsely telling her that Homer abandoned her because he was secretly gay, a lie reenacted in this musical number.
I want a French kiss a Frenchman and spoon an English duke. 'Cause frankly, dear, to not be queer just makes me wanna puke.
So, I debated whether or not to include this scene because it's like 3 layers of non-canon. But at the end of the day, in a video about Homer being queer, how could I not mention it? Obviously, the real Homer, within the play, eventually returns to defeat Moe and win back Marge. But given this little detour, the writers clearly really enjoy the concept of Homer acting super gay. This episode is a clear example of a bizarrely specific trend in the 20s seasons of The Simpsons, where various non-canon versions of Homer really let loose and end up in very, very gay situations. Like in the previous year's Halloween episode, when Homer gets killed and is then hit on by Abe Lincoln. Then in another non-canon vignette episode,
Ho hi,
a group of 7 dwarves that look like Homer and other Springfielders sing this over the end credits.
There's nothing we won't try. We'll get takeout and then make out we're bi. We're bi, we're bi, we're bi.
Or in the Futurama crossover couch gag, when Hedonism Bot gives Homer a surprise and uncomfortably sensual massage. Or Homer listing Grindr as one of humanity's greatest achievements in the full-length Kang and Kodos episode. Although admittedly, I think this was just the writers trying to seem hip by referencing something like a gay hookup app. And there's more, like Treehouse of Horror 23, where the Simpsons are haunted by a demon who, appropriately enough, looks just like Moe, and will only stop tormenting the family under one condition.
3-way.
You, me, and Marge?
Demon, you.
I guess it's one of those things a dad has to do. Now, before we start, what's the safe word?
Cinnamon.
Ooh, I like that. Now, I'd like to try something new, if you don't mind.
Cinnamon.
So, if you had any doubts about my theory at the beginning of this video, I hope you've come around at this point. Not only does he excitedly take this presumably Marge-approved opportunity to have a threesome with 2 giant men, he's also so kinky in how he wants to experiment that it's too much for the demons to handle. Honestly, I actually really fucking hate this scene. And a lot of these non-canon gay joke scenes. They're way too over the top and feel a lot more like Family Guy jokes than Simpsons. I much prefer the earlier, more harmless Homer is bi jokes. Now, of course, all this bizarre stuff is thankfully non-canon. The quote-unquote real Homer didn't do any of this. He is still a married man, after all. But I do think the non-canon versions of The Simpsons are still the same basic characters as a starting point, just warped and exaggerated a bit by the more fantastical settings. It's not like Homer's mantra in The Shining is, no broccoli and no family time make Homer go crazy, because that's certainly not what a horror movie version of Homer would say. So the non-canon Paranormal Activity version of Homer here is still a reflection of the real Homer, and he is, well, very excited at the opportunity to experiment with a gay threesome. These over-the-top non-canon jokes almost seem like a peek into Homer's libertine id, where he can act on pent-up desires like his bi-curiosity in ways that he can't in the real world, except of course in more subtle ways.
It's how Greek men say hello. Non-sexual guy kissing is the best.
Because of course he still likes kissing. The non-canon trend does die down towards the end of the 20 seasons, but bizarrely enough, we do get yet another scene that plays with the idea of Homer on Grindr, but this time in an assuredly non-bi fashion, when he and Marge try to find a boyfriend for Smithers.
How do you know about Grindr?
My wife put me onto it.
I was looking for an app for pepper grinders, and I found this.
Hey, why am I on this? Well, only one way to find out. Swipe? Did somebody here swipe me? Here's $5. Visit my dad, say you're me. Finally, I'm paid to act.
This scene almost feels like the writers realizing they'd gone a bit overboard with the gay jokes recently, and doing a corrective, putting Homer in more the position of an ally going forward. Part 4, Queer Allyship. As of the 30s era, they really only make gay jokes within the context of more thoughtfully constructed gay relationships, so fleeting jokes about Homer's bisexuality have largely disappeared, and any past traces of homophobia are long gone, with Homer again setting Smithers up with a boyfriend and becoming best friends with Patty's girlfriend. He's even shockingly supportive when he wrongly fears that Marge has fallen in love with a woman. So now that the show actually has some idea as to how to handle queer storylines, I would love it if they'd take a swing at doing an actual episode where Homer contends with his thus far unacknowledged bisexuality. In fact, season 30's Emmy-winning episode shows that the writers can handle that very type of story now.
A paper at Cornell University has showed that no one is 100% straight or gay.
Is it peer-reviewed?
Does it matter?
It's about Grandpa confronting a moment of homophobic prejudice from his past, and then briefly considering that he could be bisexual himself.
Well...
Sorry, my friend. This army man is as straight as Gomer Pyle.
And while I doubt we'll ever get such an episode exploring where Homer lands on the orientation spectrum, we've clearly seen many hints at Homer's bi-curiosity in the classic era, while struggling with and eventually moving past his internalized homophobia. And while his inclinations are made clear by his actions in the various non-canon universes, in reality, he's always been faithful and eventually becomes a supportive ally. But Homer's far from the only queer Simpson. Epilogue: the rest of the family. While Grandpa may be sexually straight, he's still one of the queerest characters in the show from his constant gender bending. And though Marge is mostly straight, she seemed to get very turned on after getting kissed by Lady Gaga.
Homer!
Even Bart is theorized by yet another great Simpsons podcaster, Henry Gilbert, to have been shown in a gay relationship in Bart to the Future.
I will say in my headcanon that Bart and Ralph are lovers. That is supported by the casualness that Ralph just walks around naked. So that's why I think Ralph is like, yeah, you've seen me naked. What do you care?
I've never heard this theory, but I totally buy it.
But of all the Simpsons family, there's one character who is pretty much irrefutably, canonically bi, and that's Lisa.
I have a friend. Oh, maybe more than a friend.
But again, if you're of the mind that it doesn't count because it's shown in possibly non-canon flash-forward episodes, canon Lisa has also made her openness to any gender abundantly clear.
47% chance of a boyfriend, 72% chance of a girlfriend.
Oh, I like those odds.
Maggie, however, as far as we know, is stone cold straight. But even she has a gay connection. One of the few times we've ever heard Maggie talk in an admittedly non-canon episode. She's voiced by loud and proud queer actor Jodie Foster.
And now, if the court will allow me, it's nap time.
So not only is Homer Simpson clearly pretty bisexual, he's also the patriarch of a very queer family.
Do you have a song request?
It's raining men!
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to comment and subscribe. Also, I actually intended to publish this video during Pride Month, but as always, I got way behind. So, from me and our favorite super gay family, happy Pride in July.